Hello! We all know Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy adaptation is the best adaptation ever done. I don't know how you actually adapt Tolkien's Lord of the Rings to live action, to live pictures, but the man did it so eloquently well. It was a great result and Tolkien fans loved him for it. But unfortunately, Pete, you had to go and spoil it by doing the Hobbit trilogy. Now, to be fair, I don't have the hatred for the Hobbit trilogy that Tolkien fans have. Now, I'm at somewhat of a disadvantage here because I've never read the work of Tolkien. So you have to pardon and excuse my ignorance, Tolkien fans. Now, I found the first Hobbit film quite charming. It worked for me. I thought it was a good film. Again, I haven't read Tolkien's works, so I am at a disadvantage judging it to the source material. But prequels are a very difficult thing to do. It's why a lot of Star Wars fans hate the Star Wars prequels. Now, as a Star Wars fan, I love those prequels, but tonally, they're inconsistent to the original trilogy. And basically, Lucas's justification for this is because the Empire, basically there was no Empire. The Jedi were flourishing. The Republic was flourishing at the time. That's why everything's so CGI and colourful and looks so good and clean and pristine. Prequels don't work, and we know it. You've told the story we wanted you to tell. We don't want to go back before that story for you to tell us what happened before it and how basically prequels are just setup. And setup, as we know, can be very, very boring. We also know that the Hobbit trilogy should never have been a trilogy. We know the Hobbit trilogy was the ultimate of cash grabs from New Line Cinema and Warner Brothers. And Peter Jackson enabled that task by dragging it out into a trilogy. I mean, some people said it should have only been 2 movies. I think it could have been a 3-hour epic quite easily, and they could have left it at that. If artistic integrity and the integrity of adapting, that story of Bilbo Baggins and his adventures was about adapting that story and doing it justice. But that wasn't the intention from the studio, and there lies the problem. As I say, I found the first Hobbit movie, An Unexpected Journey, a charming tale. The real problem is the second movie, The Desolation of Smaug. That's where the problem, really starts. There's a lot of green screen work, some green screen work that doesn't need to be green screen in this movie. It drags for a long time through this movie because they're dragging it out. That's what they're doing. They're dragging it out. And Tolkien fans could see it. And there lies the problem. A director who did so well with the original works. Because the thing is, you've got to have a trilogy for the Lord of the Rings story. There's a lot to it. There's lots of meat in the sandwich. But in terms of Bilbo Baggins, Hobbits tales, the adventures of Bilbo Baggins, basically there's not much meat in that sandwich, and you could have completed that in 1 or 2 films, and we all know that. So the fans knew that Jackson and the studio were taking the mick, and that's where the problem was. Now, I think the third film is a lot better than the second film, but ultimately I think the first film is the one I really like in this series. It does a lot of good character work. That whole sequence, in the Shire, in Bilbo's house, where they're having dinner and they basically gate crashed. It's funny, it's great, and I think Jackson adapts that so well. Again, haven't read the book, so I don't know if that's properly part of, of the Hobbit's tale, canon. You the fans can let me know that. But yeah, basically, the same problem with the Hobbit trilogy is the same problem with the Star Wars prequels. That at the end of the day, is it a story worth telling? Now, I think legally they couldn't go forward telling the future adventures after Lord of the Rings, and that's where the problem lay there. So they were kind of stuck with this prequel. It's very, very difficult once you create something, once you adapt something so well, to go back and do it as well again. And basically, maybe you should leave well enough alone, something that Hollywood have never done.